Minister.
Humphrey, do you see it as part of your job to help ministers make fools of themselves?
Well, I've never met one that needed any help.
Yes Minister and its sequel, Yes Prime Minister, poked the finger of fun at government. Over 5 series, it charted the rise to power of the nation's most unlikely Prime Minister, the Right Honourable Jim Hacker.
I've been Prime Minister for, 3 days now.
And a very good PM you are, too, if I may say so.
I'm not fishing for compliments, though it has been going rather well, hasn't it?
Indeed.
British politics took a surprise turn when Hacker was appointed to number 10. Despite well-founded doubts about his abilities, Hacker saw himself as a popular man of the people.
Hacker was a journalist, and before that, a lecturer at LSE. So he'd never run anything at all.
After the landslide election victory of 1980, Hacker had been made the Minister for Administrative Affairs. His bulging portfolio included quangos, fallout shelters, badger colonies and the Euro sausage.
You want to eat salami for breakfast with your egg and bacon? I don't. And I won't.
His relationship with the media was never easy and gave him many awkward moments.
You know, I'm glad you asked me that question.
Jim was desperate not to let himself down in front of the cameras or in the presence of journalists.
During his career, Hacker's main political relationships were with civil servants. Bernard Woolley, the very model of professional impartiality.
I'm both sides of centre, with slight leanings to the right and left.
And Sir Humphrey Appleby, who fixed it for Jim as both Minister and Prime Minister.
Ministers and their civil servants so often cover up and defend, where they should seek out and destroy.
If Hacker was an unlikely PM, Yes Minister pulled off an even bigger trick, turning the stuffed suits of Whitehall into comedy heroes.
And what about ministers?
Well, ministers, of course, have a whole range of dazzling qualities, including...
But viewers might never have been given this glimpse down the corridors of power if writer Anthony Jay had got the job he'd set his heart on.
Oh, oh, God.
I wasn't actually really that interested in politics when I started. I was really interested in sport, and I joined the outside broadcast department to start with, hoping to be a great cricket commentator.
Cricket commentaries were out, but current affairs were in, and Jay joined the BBC's Tonight programme, which took a healthily irreverent view of the state of the nation. Then Jay moved on to satirising politics in That Was the Week That Was, where he struck up a friendship with David Frost.
Well, we had this idea together for the Frost Report, which was comedy sketches about aspects of British life, like holidays and leisure and politics. One of the people he recruited was John Cleese, and I got to know John. We got on fine.
Let him who is without sin cast the first stone.
Sensing the commercial potential of comedy, Jay and Cleese went into business together, calling their company Video Arts and specialising in funny training films.
Who sold you this then?
Cleese and Jay wrote the scripts, but they also needed other actors. John Cleese called on his old friend Jonathan Lynn.
What's actually gone wrong? What's actually gone wrong?
I was very sympathetic. Poor old John, he's committed himself to this mad idea, and I'll do what I can to help out.
First time I met Johnny was when he acted in our very first film, which was how service engineers managed to lose business while they're repairing equipment.
You've been using this, haven't you?
All training films had been really boring hitherto because they showed people how to do a job right. And Tony realised that the way to make them entertaining was to show how to do it wrong.
Like Cleese, Jonathan Lynn was a graduate of Cambridge University's Footlights Club, and they appeared on Broadway together in the comedy revue Cambridge Circus. Back in Britain, Lynn appeared on stage in Fiddler on the Roof and played small parts in TV sitcoms like The Liverbirds. But it wasn't until some Cambridge friends, now goodies, started writing for another sitcom that Lynn's career really took off.
Bill Oddie and Graham Garden wrote a part in Doctor in the House called Danny Hooley in the second series of Doctor in the House, and I think they wrote it with me in mind.
I never did trust you, Upton. You're shifty. Everybody says so. Did I? Well, I do.
1 week, somebody didn't deliver a script in time. And George Layton, who I'd become friends with, said, why don't we have a go at writing an episode?
It's me, Paul Collier.
So we did, and we had beginner's luck. And after that, such is the dearth of people who can deliver a funny half hour, we were sort of swamped with offers.
Dozens of scripts for the Doctor series and On the Buses established Lynn as a comedy writer, so when Cleese went off to write Fawlty Towers, Lynn was invited to take over scripting duties at Video Arts.
We started writing comedy training films together, and we got on fine. It was a very happy, successful partnership.
Impressed with Johnny's talent, Tony Jay thought he'd sound him out about a different type of comedy.
Tony said to me, "I've thought of doing a situation comedy about the corridors of power, about what happens in government, about the civil service."
When I first mentioned the Yes Minister idea to Johnny, he was sort of coolish about it.
I thought that was really the most boring suggestion that had come my way for a long time. So I said, no thanks.
Lynn might have blocked the start of Hacker's career, but Tony wasn't discouraged, suspecting politics could be a comedy goldmine for someone prepared to dig.
I think I first got the idea for Yes Minister working with politicians and seeing how actually the whole thing that people saw on the screen was about a quarter of the real story, and that all the work of government was done behind the scenes by press officers and private secretaries and permanent secretaries and the people who all knew how it worked. And then I thought, do you know, this is exactly the same as Steptoe and Son. You've got young Steptoe, got these wonderful, oh, Dad, we could do the most wonderful thing, you know, we could do, and with all the aspirations, and his father, who really knows the business, saying, no, I won't work, can't do that.
Having spent 2 years directing plays, Johnny Lynn was now ready to write again.
So Tony said, do you remember that idea? And he said, yes. And I said, are you interested now? And I said, well, I don't know, I might be. He said, well, let's meet and talk about it. So we did. And we thought, well, we'll research it and see if we can work out how to do this show.
Was there anything funny about Whitehall? Plenty. Marsha Williams, Harold Wilson's former private secretary, and Bernard Donahue, head of Number 10's political unit, were prepared to speak off the record.
We never mentioned each to the other because they disliked each other quite a lot.
We normally, but not always, met for a nice fish lunch, but we would discuss then at a meeting thoughts and ideas.
We read everything you could read, but what we were really about was the things you wouldn't read and people wouldn't write, but would tell us over lunch.
I had never revealed that I helped Yes Minister. Nobody knew. For me, it was a kind of secret, private pleasure.
The indiscretions over lunch convinced Lynn that there was a rich source of comedy at the heart of government. The show and the characters were taking shape.
We discovered we were able to nail it down to actually 3 characters who would enable us to preserve the dramatic truth of the situation.
To bring the first script to life, one character needed to embody the whole civil service ethos.
Sir Humphrey was, in my view, a creation of absolute genius, personifying the aspects of behaviour at the top in Whitehall.
I thought of someone who'd been terribly good in a video arts training film. That was Nigel Hawthorne.
Nigel Hawthorne was a respected stage actor who had recently won plaudits for his appearance in Privates on Parade. His ability to play both dominance and deference made him perfect for Sir Humphrey Appleby, the department's permanent secretary.
He sees himself as a defender of the nation's interests against these people who come and go and never see anything through because they're never in the same job for more than about 18 months anyway.
In spite of Sir Humphrey, the post of minister had to be filled. BBC's head of comedy, John Howard Davis, had chosen his candidate and wouldn't take no for an answer.
I never thought of anybody else but Paul to play the minister. Uniquely, he was absolutely perfect for it. And I hadn't got a second choice.
Paul Eddington had appeared in TV's Adventures of Robin Hood and Catweasel before becoming a favourite as the long-suffering neighbour Jerry in The Good Life.
You've torn my Financial Times.
I am very, very sorry. I do realise that's the 8th deadly sin, but my fruit is suffering.
Well, give it an aspirin.
By 1978, the job of Jim Hacker was his for the taking.
I think we'd always seen the relationship between Jim and Humphrey as being the heart of the comedy, and I think nearly all the really funny scenes are when the two of them are together, but you had to have scenes of them apart because you had to tell the audience what Jim was planning that he didn't want Humphrey to know, or Humphrey was planning he didn't want Jim to know. And so that was where Bernard came in. He was the pig in the middle. He was confided in by both of them, trying to be loyal to both of them, and it made his part a very funny one, a great satisfactory one to write.
The future Bernard, however, wasn't waiting for the phone to ring.
Hello! Yes, hello. This is the Folds and Brush Detective Agency at your service. The Foreign Office. Oh, certainly, Mr. Minister. Yes, Mr. Minister. We'll expect you in half an hour then, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you. Goodbye.
I'd seen Derek on television with my kid. We were watching him as with Basil Brush. And I suddenly thought this might be the man for Bernard Woolley.
Basil and I really gelled together. We did 8 series and 2 Royal Command performances. And when I left, because I had to go and act, I really missed him. He became my best friend.
After spending the early 70s hanging out with Basil and popping up in shows like The Live Birds, Derek Folds was ready to take the civil service challenge. All the elements seemed to be in place for a successful political sitcom.
We only went to pilot. We didn't get a series guaranteed on it, but we wrote a decent treatment and we showed where the fun was and we showed who the characters were and the sort of stories that you could write and the sort of situations that would develop. And really that was enough.
But unfortunately, when I presented it to Paul Eddington for him to play the Minister, he turned it down. He didn't like it. He said it never works, not very funny. Politics are not funny, they're horrible people.
You really are a pain in the arse, aren't you?
I'm a bully, so I eventually managed to persuade him to do the pilot.
With Paul Eddington on board, however unwillingly, the rest of the team were recruited, including Diana Hodinott as Jim's sceptical but supportive wife Annie, John Nettleton as the all-powerful Cabinet Secretary Sir Arnold, and Anthony Carrick as Hacker's press officer. Everyone was anxious that the pilot would leave a good impression.
A pilot is always done under extreme nervous tension. No two ways about it, you're frightened to death.
I met Paul, and he was wonderful, and Nigel, and we said hello, and we started. And I got these little glasses, and I put them on, and I started to talk a bit like that, you know. Hello. And Paul and I were in the taxi, rehearsing, and he said, why are you talking funny? I said, what do you mean? He's Bernard's, this PPS. I thought I'd do something rather like that. He says, why? And he said, what have you got those glasses on for? I said, it's all character stuff. He said, take the glasses off. Just be you. I said, I don't know how to do that. He said, just be you.